You guys want
Just
to take a
enjoying
guess what I had?
Vegetables.
tropical fruit.
Tofurkey.
It's
Yeah.
the most common food in the world.
Rice.
Yeah, every day.
Sounds tasty.
But I love it. I absolutely love it. And when I went back to America last time, it was hard for me not to have it there.
Yeah, they don't carry it in the stores here, I don't think, do they?
Yeah. I got a story for you guys. And we
Okay.
can throw NLP into this as well. So the other day I was on a police chase.
On the police chase.
Yeah.
Were you in the front or behind?
No, I was in the front.
Oh.
And so I live on kind of like a side street that's not really busy. And I've gotten pulled over one time before, but I always try to watch out for the police because generally I don't wear a helmet. Just because my co-working space is so close, and I would say about 60% of the locals don't wear a helmet either. So anyways, well, technically, I think you're supposed to have a license here as well, but
technically.
And so what happened was I'm on my street and it's just a side street, and I see the police officer. He goes the opposite way, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And I had the feeling that he was going to come back and turn around and try to get me. And I should have just took a left turn because that's like a right turn here. It's easy. But I tried to take the right turn anyways. And what happened was, that's yours, man. I didn't want to move it or anything, but it kept going off. You can have the spot. I just wanted to. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so yeah, and then so I go to the stop, and it's a pretty busy street, and the police officer stops right next to me, and he says, "Okay, you pull over there." And so what happened was he's like, "Okay, you cross the street." He told me to cross the street and go to the other side because it's not really busy there, and he was gonna pull me over or whatever there. And so I'm like, okay. And so then like there's a break in the traffic, and he pulls forward, and it's kind of time to go. And so I pull a little bit forward, but I just wait. And he's like, come on. And he gets a little bit mad and everything. And then I see a scooter and another car come by, and I wait just long enough, and I gun it right around them. And I almost cause a wreck, and I get the police officer just lost in this traffic. And I'm like, yes. And so
Am I pulling you? Sorry.
So then I take off. Like I'm gone. I'm just driving as fast as I can, weaving in and out of traffic. And I go for about 2 miles. And the mistake I made was I didn't turn off. I should have just turned and then turned and then turned and turned, but I just kept going on a straight road. And then finally I did turn off, and now I'm like more in a country road. And I look back and I see in my mirror the police officer is catching up to me. And next thing you know, he's right to my right side, and he's like, okay, you're going to pull over now? And I'm like, I guess so. So I pull over on the side of the road, and he's a little bit mad. And he's like, you not wear a helmet. And he's kind of upset about that. And he's like, where's your license? And so I give him my Colorado driver's license. And he's like, actually, first I tried to give him my license and the equivalent of $7.50, because that's generally what you do. Yeah. That's generally what you do. You just give him it's 100,000 rupees, but you just hand him the cash and your license, and he just usually lets you go. So I tried to do that, but he's like, no, I don't want no money. And so then he takes my license, and then he's like, why didn't you not wear no helmet? And you don't have no international license. You go to jail and go to court. And he's just kind of trying to just scare me with these things. And so eventually he tells me, he's like, okay, 1 million rupees, 1 million rupees, which is the equivalent of about, I'd say $90. So he's asking for $90. And I'm like, no, I'll give you $7. He's like, no, I want 1 million rupees, which is $90. I'm like, no, I'll give you $7. So we go back and forth, and then he takes my keys. He's like, okay, I take your scooter. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Oh gosh. It's just this police officer, and he doesn't have a radio. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't really have any way to take my scooter unless he just takes my keys. But he takes my keys.
You sure he was a police officer?
Oh yeah, these are the police officers exactly there. And you were just talking about how I was in a police chase the other day.
Oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah. So I tried to cause a traffic jam and almost wreck a cop, and then I drove really fast for about 2 miles, and he finally caught me.
And
so then at this point, he has my license, he has my keys, and he's asking for about $90.
That's a small price to
Sure.
get. How much did you park this down
The
for?
normal price is apparently much lower.
And I'll tell you why. So we're talking more and more, and he has my license, he has my keys at this point, and then he starts writing me a ticket. Takes my name from the thing, and he's he writes the ticket, and then he says, okay, 700,000 rupees, which is the equivalent about $60. So okay, $60, and I can walk. And I'm like, no, I'll give you 100,000 rupees, which is $7. $7. And he's all mad and everything. He's like, no. Okay, 500,000. And at this point, I'm like, no, still 100,000, still $7. And he's like, okay, fine, I'm mad. And he gets really mad, and he's like, okay, I take you to jail. You go to court tomorrow. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so then he's like, okay, you sign this. And he gives me the ticket, and he's like, okay, you sign it. I'm like, I'm not signing it. I don't know what this means. I'm not signing this.
Right.
So then he gets really mad, and it's just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 500,000, I'll let you go. And I was like, no, I'll give you 100,000. I'll give you $7, and that's it. And so then finally he says, okay, 300,000. I'll give 300,000. I was like, okay, 200,000. 200,000, it's deal. It's like, no, 300,000. So I pull out 200,000, which is the equivalent of $15. And I'm about to hand it to him. I was like, okay, you give me my license, give me my keys, we're good. And so he does. So I get offered $15, and a pretty good story. I think it was well worth $15 actually.
For the story,
Yeah, I'd like to see somebody try to haggle like that with the police here in the States. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've evaded a few police officers in my time, Sean, but I've never taken off when one's already pulled me over. I have never done that.
Well, what possessed you to take off?
Well, about a year ago, I got pulled over by one, and I wasn't wearing a helmet then, and it was a cop that was just on walking. And so this is my second day on a scooter, and so I'm like, oh shit, I better stop. It's a police officer. And so he's like, okay, stop. And he's on foot, and so I stopped for him, and I ended up paying about $40 for that one. Because I was scared. I was like, oh shit, he's gonna take me to jail. I had no idea. But then you get around here and you talk to enough people, you know that the police officers are just kind of taking bribes and looking to pull over white people so they can get money. And the standard procedure that the co-working center, the boss at the co-working center told me was that you put your license and you fold up 100,000 rupees in it, which is $7, and you just give it to them.
Right.
And so that's actually good money for them, because the average salary here is $250 a month.
Oh yeah.
And so he's asking for $90. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so just having that understanding, I was able to totally negotiate with him. And I knew that after last time, my friend, he told me, he's like, well, why didn't you just run? And my friend had been there for a month, and I was like, oh, that would have been an option. That would have been interesting. I probably should have done that.
That story might have been worth even more.
Yeah. So this time it was I was stopped at the intersection, and I was thinking, what options do I have? I could go left and I can try to run. I can go right and try to run. I can go and get pulled over, and if I get pulled over, I'll probably have to pay 100,000 anyways. So I might as well risk it. And to risk it for $7, it was beautiful.
I'm glad it worked out so well for you.
I used to live in Asia, and we call it bakshish in Asia. So anytime there was a run-in with the police or customs or any kind of authority, immediately I would say, oh, is there a fee that I need to pay? I wouldn't call it a bakshish or a bribe, but I would just supersede it. Is there a fee I need to pay? Yes, there is. How much is that? And then we would go into the bargaining as well.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Because usually you'll look to the police for like safety, security, and everything.
Ooh.
For the most part, they're like traffic police. Like they move along traffic. If there's like too much traffic on this road and it's too busy, they just move their hands. That's all they do. They stand in the middle of traffic and they tell who to go, and they don't really do anything other than that and take bribes. So.
Sean, I just checked the time of where I am, and I see that it closes at 6. I thought it closed at 9. So I'm going to have to run in 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Mom, are you there with us? I see your name up, but I don't see no video. I'm going to check my phone to see if there's a chance that she's there. So yeah, how was everybody's Thanksgiving? Good?
Good. Mm-hmm.
Any fun stories there? Where's your guys' families?
Well, I have a brother who lives in Inglewood, so South Denver, and then the rest of my family's out of state, in multiple states. So,
Okay.
so Stephen and I did our own Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, and then Friday we went up to my brother's and had another Thanksgiving dinner with them.
Okay. Steven, is your family in Minnesota or?
They're kind of scattered. Actually, my parents, who are in Florida for 6 months right now, went to my sister's place in San Diego, and I still have a brother and sister-in-law in Minnesota, but we're just kind of all over the place.
Okay. And you, Valerie?
My sister is living with me right now.
Oh, that's right.
And my mom lives in Florida.
Okay.
So.
Anya, your family in Ireland still, or?
Yeah, they're all back home in the Greenland. So we don't do Thanksgiving in Europe, so I drop the ball every year because I just forget it. It's just, right? Yeah. And then last minute I'm like, oh, holiday. So I always end around, just going around.
In the middle to begin with, you guys fucking put me there. No, I did not. Is
that you, Becky?
Are you there?
Was. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of what you were saying there, Anya.
So I went around to friends as per usual. I just keep forgetting about Thanksgiving. Christmas is important to us as Europeans, but Thanksgiving, I just forget about it all the time.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'm excited about this training because it's probably one of the most useful things you can do in anywhere of your conversation. But first, I want to go ahead and show you guys something, an actual practical application of sleight of mouth.
It's called sleight of mouth, the technique?
Yeah, this is what we had trained on the last week before last, 3 weeks straight. And these are the kind of the patterns that we did. And so we actually had this, and it's a preview for you guys about what we'll cover here in the future. So let me pull this up on the screen share. Okay, everybody have it there?
Yep.
Cool.
I don't even know.
Ask this part.
Maybe rejection.
Okay. It's not the rejection that you're fearful of. It's the being let down.
Maybe.
And it's not the being let down, but it's the feeling of not being good enough. And it's not that you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they're not good enough for you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And just maybe it's a good thing if you know that sooner than later.
I agree with you. I think even the protective part of me would agree with you.
What all was done there in your guys' observation? And from our sleight of mouth.
Mhm.
Well, you were giving her your map, essentially, your interpretation of what she had told you. You were leading her to a certain place that you thought was the right place.
Maybe that. But I also want you to notice that I used one sleight of mouth pattern and then I checked in. I used another
Yeah.
sleight of mouth pattern and I checked in, and then another one. Barb?
Right. And it was not, it, as I say, yeah, that's what I noticed is that you kept using the different patterns until Valerie had some agreement, like something finally, you know, when you said it, is it that they're not good enough for you? And that's when it like kind of struck a chord with her. And it was like, okay, that's now you're onto something. And so I like that you kept, even with when Valerie wasn't even responding, you kept going and just doing the sleight of mouth until you got a response. And so I thought that was pretty cool because it's like a lot of times if you wait too long, I think people will they'll go off on a different tangent, or they'll give you reasons why it's not what you just said. So I like that you just kept going until she responded.
And she was checking her experience with it too, because I would say the first thing, and I said, you know, it's I did the first sleight of mouth pattern. What was it? It's not the rejection, but it's the feeling of being let down or something like that, right? And so she's checking, and I see it in her eyes, and I see in her experience if that's true or not. And she's seeing enough, and the response that I don't want is for her to just, you know, okay, it's not that. Or if I saw something like an abreaction or something where she was resisting that, then I might totally back up and move away. What I'd prefer a little bit more is like, yeah, that's right, ideally. But we led it down a path where she's checking her experiences, it's pacing and leading. I see that she's following along, and then I lead it to a place of eventually them not being good enough for her. But it's super important how she checks in. She's checking it, and that's good information for me. And I go slow enough on this, but not too slow where I can pace it well enough. So we did redefining right there, and then at the end it was a reframe.
Mm-hmm.
So Valerie, I assume I know that the bigger context of that conversation, it was the same one that we had, what was it, 2 Thursdays ago?
Roughly.
Yeah. And one of the things, Sean, that I found interesting was you ended up at the same place that I did, which was almost exactly the same words. I don't remember what I said exactly, but it was something about it's better that you find this out sooner than later. She didn't agree with me then, but what you did, do you remember that, Valerie?
No.
Oh. But whatever you did, or you know what you did, got her there.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a preview for kind of what we're going in the direction. I had the awesome opportunity to work with both Anya and Valerie on that. And I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to break it up, but we have enough video recorded where we could probably do 2 sessions where we could dissect, you know, what's going on in a change process. And it's actually my first time like really getting next to somebody and coaching and saying, okay, this is the steps that you could have taken to further change this, or this is what you might see coming up front. And so what I found is my point of growth there. And so it was phenomenal, and I want to keep that going, I think, as I mentioned in the emails. But let's go ahead and get started with this. I know, Anya, you're probably running short on time here, but let me pull up the document that I sent you guys out here.
I'm going to stay here until they kick me out.
Okay. I remember my days at Starbucks where I'd do the same. So we're talking about mapping and modeling, and essentially just understanding somebody's experience. What we're looking at, and for our purposes, we're just calling mapping here, is to elicit someone's map, their representation of the world, idea, a concept, a purpose, something in life. This could be anything, this could be everything, it just kind of depends. It's any kind of piece of information. And what we want to do, and we do this because we all have different experiences and we're all representing the world in different ways. Anya has a whole wealth of experience behind her and a whole bunch of life experiences that are filtering her experience going forward, completely different from mine, completely different from Valerie's. And so her idea of affection might be completely different from mine, be completely different from Stephen's, be completely different from Barb's. And when we understand our maps, other people's maps, a little bit better, we can better have the opportunity to connect with them. And what this is useful for, and what I found to be most beneficial, not only in a therapeutic context, but the context of relationships. So if you have somebody on a date, what's most beneficial to is really to understand them. And oftentimes the question I get from other people is, well, if you ask these people questions, such as these, won't they get kind of defensive or wonder what's going on? And it's absolutely not the case. You ask them more and more questions. Okay, so what does that mean to you? Okay, how specifically is that shown in your life? What does that do for you? Those kind of questions always lead to further and further connection. While they could lead to break in rapport, it's very rare that I see it happen. Cool? So when we're talking about mapping, this is seeing how the other people's view the world. Every word, every VAK representation, it's subject to the deletions, distortions, and generalizations. So I'm talking with Barb, she's talking about affection, and it's generalized. It's distorted, it's deleted. In her experience and mine, it's further distorted when she tells me about it. Because not only does she see affection in her life, maybe she feels it, and then she interprets it with her mental representation. She makes the map of it, then she further communicates it out to me. So we're talking 3 levels of distortion, deletion, and generalization. Not only that, we're also filtering our own experience through our own maps. And I kind of covered that already, which is affection can mean 10 different things to 10 different people. However, it's going to be very similar to people. It's still going to be different. And lastly, elicit. So most of the time, it's going to be beneficial not only to ask, but even more so to elicit. And so this isn't always asking the question, but this is eliciting the answer. And I had one, just to kind of preview guys for what we went over with Valerie, and we're talking in a dating context. You remember the example, Valerie, where I elicited some information from you?
Right, but I don't know that I could repeat it because I'm still trying to wrap my head around your language patterns in that example. Remember how that really threw me?
We have the situation where she's on a date, a romantic date, and she wants to know what the man's looking for, or potentially somebody's wants to know what the man's looking for. And so we did. Is my mic working? It's telling me I can't detect it, which is a little bit weird. But she's on the date. She wants to know what the man is looking for. And so I was kind of just role playing with her, and I had like a linguistic, like just whole repertoire thrown at her. And so I was like, okay, well, you're a nice girl. You seem really cool, and I'm enjoying our time together. And what I wonder is you're in your career now, and I'm sure it's very stable. Do you see yourself being here for a little while, or how long do you see yourself staying where you are now? And so in that place, I did ask a question, but I listed a lot of information, and I gave her kind of a veil of what I'm looking for. And what generally I'm looking for is, it's a more serious question with, okay, you're stable now, correct? And I said, is it not? Which she's probably going to affirm to there. And then I also went back and I also listed how long she's going to stay there. What generally is going to happen is she's not going to say, yeah, I plan on staying here for a little bit. What generally is going to happen is she's going to tell me more about work and tell me more about herself, her plans for long-term, maybe even a relationship. I could also say such things as, well, you know, you seem really stable. You seem like you know what you're doing. And, you know, I wonder, I mean, there's a lot of people here that just kind of want to, or they don't know what they want. They just kind of want to play around and mess around. And you seem like a type that really knows what you want, and you're really out to get that. And so I admire that about you. And what happens then? Likely she's going to tell me what she wants. And if instead I had gone the case where I'm just going and I'm saying, okay, well, what are you looking for? Well, that's a little bit much. That's a little bit heavy on a first date. I just got to the restaurant with Anya, and we're talking, and I was like, oh gosh, the weather, it was so rainy here. So what are you looking for? Are you looking for marriage on the 5th date, or are you looking for marriage after 3 months? Am I wasting my time? So that's how it can be super beneficial for us in that context. Going further, modeling is, for our purposes here, just loosely defined, is to go ahead and use these maps so we can better emulate these people's maps, so we can go about our lives in the way that they're going about in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So this is developing our own process and strategies based on others. We can model success or failure in all areas of our life. And we're constantly in search for finding better ways of living, whether unconsciously or consciously. But when we know other people's maps or have a better idea of it, then we can better use them to model them to live better ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments, thoughts already?
So you use the word veil, but did you use it in context of an actual term? Like,
I honestly just came up with that last
okay.
Friday night when we had talked. And
Okay.
it's probably the most appropriate word, because my intentions are pretty clear there. It's not like I'm deceiving somebody, but it is a little bit hidden.
Mm-hmm. I really took that to heart. So I'm working on my sort of veiled interactions.
Veiled but open, right?
It's working.
Really?
Yep, it is. I figured out a way to say no without really saying no
Beautiful.
on some of my process stuff. And yeah, he is beautiful. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah.
You look brighter, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say it because we had the session, more alluring actually. Maybe it's the lighting in the room, but I would say so.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued by the veil. I'm intrigued by, the reason I mentioned it is because I'm intrigued by the veiled way to elicit information to get to the map. That's something that I'm thinking would be useful in a lot of different scenarios.
Most definitely. And what I wonder from everybody here, because how this kind of came up is, it was a challenge with seeing the world from somebody else's perspective. And so if we have more information about how they see the world, whether that's their beliefs, whether that's maybe just information that you elicited from them on this car that they want to buy, then you can better go into that. And so what I was thinking is we just go exactly into that process and how we can be better at getting this quickly. So what I wonder, and just as a starting place for us, what I want to ask is, how long do you think it takes yourself, if you get into an interaction, a conversation with somebody where you really understand them, where you understand that person, their motivations, their drives, what's going on with them? Anya, for you?
For me, it really varies case by case. I find that some people, to use your word, kind of veil or protect themselves quite well, and they're not that, they don't really give information that freely, or they veil it. Whereas with other people, it can be pretty quick.
Mm.
For me, it really is case by case. And then other people, even if you're kind of veiling the questions, they have a high level of emotional intelligence, and they realize what you're doing, so they can dance around it as well. Right?
What if they couldn't dance around it? What if you're just so skilled they had no choice but to?
Oh man, I mean, I would, yeah, that's what I want.
And I know Valerie's going to have this with the allure that she now has, is they're just going to be entranced and totally taken ablaze.
Yeah.
I'll know everything.
Plus so not only that, it's the skill set with doing that. And, you know, sometimes it kind of can be long, complex, and you can say a bunch of things, and other times you can just have it quickly, in what I've experienced with myself. Stephen, for you, how long do you usually take before you can get a good sense of what's driving a person?
You know, I have to agree that it can be very case by case. Some people are really good at communicating, and if they want to communicate a lot to you quickly, they can do that. I think there are other people that either don't want to, or that really have no clue how to communicate. You can ask them a simple question and they'll give you a very long, detailed story about something that may or may not even be related to your question, and then another story, and then that reminds them of something else. And you can sit there for an hour and feel like you don't know anything, other than that they can't really keep focused, you know?
Okay. And Barb, for you?
So,
Yeah, I have to say, I was sitting here thinking about this, and I really have to say it is case by case for me also, because if I have instant rapport with somebody, like, I'll just give you an example. I was in a bar one time with some friends and just started chatting with this woman. Before I knew it, the two of us were sitting there. She's telling me everything about her marriage and how horrible things were. And she says, I don't know why I'm telling you this. And I said, because everybody does, you know. But then I have other people who just, no matter what questions I ask, no matter how I try to interact with them, I can't get anything out of them. So to me, that whether it's that level of rapport, whether it's instant rapport or it takes me, you know, I have to meet them several times or spend, you know, several different instances of time with them to build the rapport so that they get to know and trust me before they start opening up.
Okay.
I'm hearing a different question, and I'm saying this in case I'm hearing it wrong. I thought you were asking about feeling like you really understand their map of the world. And in my mind, that's different from rapport. Is that true?
Absolutely, it can be. I think they don't have to be the same.
I think rapport can be easy if you're on your game, but understanding their map, I can think of a half a dozen conversations last with that. Even if we had rapport, I don't know.
You broke out for me. What did you say?
I think rapport can be really easy, but I don't know that understanding someone's map of the world is easy.
my question for you, Sean, is can you do a fairly good job of eliciting someone's map of the world without rapport?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. For me, I don't see it as a big challenge. In what you had said, Valerie, when you said that it's hard to understand somebody's map of the world, I have a hard time with that. And maybe it's just my experience or thinking that people are overly simple. Because sometimes I do generalize a lot. But if
people are really complex.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm on the other end of that spectrum, and I think it takes a long time to get to know someone.
Okay. Stephen, you're thinking there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if getting to know somebody is the same as understanding their map of the world.
Mm.
So Valerie, what is getting to know somebody for you?
For me, it's about understanding enough of their histories or experiences to understand. Like, I would say, oh, I know this person if I can reasonably predict how they're going to respond. Like, that would be like, if I feel like I'm in a predictive state with somebody, then I would think, yeah, I know this person. It would be hard for them to surprise me.
Okay. Actually, I want to form this a little differently, but would you say that getting to know somebody is a specific example of knowing how they respond, or would you say that knowing how they respond is a specific example of getting to know someone?
What?
So knowing how somebody responds, would you say it's equivalent to getting to know somebody, or would you say it's a specific example of getting to know someone?
I think of it more of as an example, a result, an outcome of getting to know someone is that I can reasonably determine how they might respond and therefore craft my communication to suit that. I don't know.
So what happens if you don't know how that they will respond?
Then I think I don't know them really well yet.
Okay.
I might know them, but not like know them deeply.
And so if you knew how they respond, then you'd feel like you knew them deeply. Right? This could be easier to navigate these things.
All we see is the whiteboard. We don't see the tools that you're using.
Oh, okay. And so if you have the feeling that you can go ahead and you can predict what they're going to do, then you know them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you guys see how this has been mapped around pretty well?
Sorry?
Stephen and Barb, do you guys see how this has been mapped around pretty well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could also say it's our convincer strategy that if she knows somebody, then, or she knows how they will respond, then she can know them deeply. We could go further than that. We could say, well, how do you know that you know them deeply? Or, sorry, how do you know how they will respond? How do you know that?
Is that an actual question?
Yeah.
Because I have observed or interacted with them in a enough variety of situations that I can anticipate how their brain will piece together information, how they will filter information.
Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what specifically for you is enough situations?
30.
30.
50. Preferably a mix of personal and professional. Not just one world that they're in, but more than one world that they're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I would totally firmly agree that with Valerie that for her, getting to know somebody is a long process.
Long time.
Valerie, have you ever met somebody and clicked almost instantly?
Yeah.
By that, and I have too.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's different than knowing them, that feeling that you're on the same wavelength. And
Hold on. Is it Valerie? Is getting to know somebody the same or different than feeling like you've clicked with somebody?
I think it's different.
Okay.
I think clicking with somebody is finding someone that you anticipate to be a kindred spirit, for whatever, whether because you're enough the same or because you have, or because you're just perfectly different or whatever the case may be. That's clicking, and getting to know someone is seeing that played out in real life in multiple contexts enough that when they start to tell you a story about what happened that day, you can pretty much anticipate where it's headed.
Okay, yeah.
So clicking is maybe more like an entry point to wanting to experience them 30 or 50 times and get to know them.
Yeah, clicking is rapport and yeah, maybe wanting to explore that. Maybe clicking is more kinesthetic for me. Like a resonance, but it's not.
Interesting. Clicking for me is like purely intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think from that can come a kinesthetic, but
So how is the information that we just got from Valerie useful for us?
if I was interested in dating Valerie, for example, and I somehow elicited this, I would figure out how to feel like we were clicking, get her to feel like we were clicking, and that would lead to more interactions with her.
Yeah, or if we knew what getting to know her was. So what I'd ask further is I would ask Valerie, so what happens when you've gotten to know somebody? What does that lead to?
Getting to know them better.
Say maybe a romantic conversation, Valerie.
Investment. It leads to me rearranging my resources so that I can have more experiences with them, whether that's rearranging my calendar, making time, space.
So if you meet with somebody for 30 or 50 times in multiple contexts, and then you can know exactly what they're going to do, then you'll invest more in them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what would happen? What might that lead to?
Well, I think we're past the point of commitment at that point. So
Are you past it?
probably.
Where's the point of commitment? Is it before or after you've had the 30 or 50 meetings with them or situations with them?
Maybe before.
Okay. Would you say maybe 19, 18?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So back to kind of our outcomes, what we're looking at. So if I'm Steven or if I'm somebody else and we're putting somebody in this situation, maybe let's put it in a dating context where we want to get to know Valerie more. I've kind of just listed the map to getting to know her more. So if I'm on the first date with her and say my outcome is to getting to know her, then what I'll do is I will go ahead and try to be predictable in how I can respond. But even more so, what I'll do is I'll go 30 to 50 times in multiple contexts.
Yeah.
So what I might do and how this might look in the real world is, okay, we're on the date together. Okay, let's move, let's take a walk. Okay, let's move, let's go get ice cream. Okay, let's move, let's get a drink afterwards. Okay, let's move, let's go to someplace else.
Interesting. So it feels like more times in more contexts.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
In addition, I might go and say, okay, let's play pool now at the bar. Okay, now let's go sit at the bar. Now let's go sit at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how would this be useful if I'm coaching her, Barb? Let's say we're helping her with her dating life.
Mhm. So just knowing this, just knowing this would help you in coaching. I'm trying to think. I'm kind of processing out loud here.
Sure.
So it would help you because then you would know different questions that you could then ask her to elicit even more information.
Mm-hmm.
So you've met somebody. How many different situations have you observed them in? You know, how many or different contexts have you interacted with them? So you can kind of see where in her process she is at in getting to know someone. So if she's feeling stuck, for instance, or if she's saying, well, I'm not sure if I really want to move forward with this person, you know, okay, well, how many different situations have you observed this person in, or how many different contexts have you interacted with this person? And if she said, well, 2, you can say, well, you know, it takes you 30 to 50, you know, multiple different contexts to get to know somebody. So are you, you know, would you be willing to give this person more time?
I think sometimes some people, you know, right away.
Right, and sometimes
Good
you do.
or bad, but
Right, sometimes
yeah.
you do.
How would we know to change this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So basically, we had elicited a process for her to get to know somebody.
Okay.
Mhm.
How or why would we want to change this?
How or why would we want to change this? So we're a third person, and we think it would be beneficial for us to suggest to Valerie that she should change that process in a particular situation. Is that what you're saying? How
Or
would
a
we do that
therapist
then?
or a practitioner?
Yeah. Okay.
And the simple answer is when it becomes a problem,
Yeah.
we know to help her change it if it becomes a problem. So if it was a problem for somebody to meet somebody 30 to 50 times in multiple contexts, so they would be able to get to know somebody, this might be something we would look at doing. Can you see an example where that might be the case?
I'm thinking like if somebody has met somebody online and maybe they geographically live so far apart from each other that they can't meet in person. So the only kind of context to meet in would be online. So then we want to change, help that person change this so they can maybe see different context within those online meetings.
Okay.
Or see that, you know, this is until you are actually able to see each other in person, this is the one kind of way that you're going to interact with this person. So how do we adjust that? You know, how can we help that person adjust those to move things maybe along a little faster, or maybe move them along a little slower, depending on how it becomes a problem, if it becomes a problem.
Yeah, this is a tough question to see it in real life, because I like this process. It's not a bad one generally. If I have 30 to 50 times before I meet somebody, that's a pretty good protection strategy. So let's compare it with somebody who feels like they meet somebody and they have maybe 2 to 5 multiple contexts, and then they feel like they know somebody. How could that be a problem?
Well, it could be a problem because they may not actually know that person. They think they know that person, but then there could be something going on with them that they just haven't been exposed to yet. And then maybe which could lead the individual to say, you know what, I don't want to know this person anymore. I need to walk away.
I think
So it's like jump too soon.
I think a potential problem is it's really easy to fall into patterns and habits. So like I had a friend, and she and I only got to know each other in a very specific context. This is when I was living in Japan, And once a week, she didn't have a car. Once a week, I would pick her up and we would go to a hot springs together. And we would be completely naked, soaking in hot water, extremely relaxed, really wonderful feeling kind of environment. And I thought I knew her so well, but all I ever saw her was at the hot spring. Like that was really, and even like picking her up in the car, we knew we were going to the hot springs. And so we were already in that mindset. And when I got to know her in other scenarios, and this was not like a romantic interest of mine, but you know, like getting to know this friend in other scenarios became extremely eye-opening. And I was like, oh my goodness, who is this person? By then I was invested, but still it was just, you know, it really kind of highlighted for me how easy it is to get into these like ruts almost. And I think in dating too, where it's like you kind of start doing the same thing. Like if the two of you had only ever gone hiking together,
Right.
you would have gotten to know like hiking action figure Barb, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like one facet, but other environments bring out other aspects of people, seeing them around their coworkers, around their friends, their family, right? That can be hugely eye-opening.
So this could be two things then for you. One is having a 30 or 50 different times experiencing something with them, and then also multiple contexts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if we add on to that and learning at the extremes, if we say that we have somebody that feels like they get to know somebody really well within 2 to 5, the extreme of that could be a woman who goes on a date one time, feels like they know somebody, and then gets invested with them. Then they're all attached. Then they feel heartbreak when they're not really at the place of knowing them. To where, and then that might bring pain. Then that might be the place that we need to change that. Let's compare it also with somebody that has 100 to 200 times before they really feel like they got to know somebody. How would that be a problem, Stephen?
I don't know that it would be actually, but
could it be?
could be. Yeah. You know, if it took me 200 times of dating someone before I felt like they were letting their walls down a little bit, they were letting me in, and I was really getting to know them, that would discourage me.
Yeah. Or let's say the woman wants a commitment and you go out with her and you have, 100 times seeing each other, and she feels like she knows you, but you still don't feel like you know her.
Right.
And she wants that, then that might be a problem. And you keep doing that, this woman, that woman, that woman, and you go out for 6 months, maybe 3 months, whatever. And it doesn't result in the way that you wanted to, where you wanted the relationship all along, but you kept feeling like you didn't know her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mismatch of expectations there, among other problems.
So in what I've done here is I've used kind of everything, where we're talking about chunking up, chunking down. And this isn't just an example of that, but this is an example of everything all around, where we're also using the meta model. So I could go and say, how specifically do you observe these situations? Or I could say, how specifically do you know how they're going to respond? Getting to know somebody, it's a process. So it's good that it's, in that sense, in here, I think it's kind of nominalized. We can make it and turn it back into a process of getting to know somebody. I take that back. It is already a process, so that's good. But we can use our meta model. We can use our chunking up, chunking down. And what we can also do is we can use our logical levels, our Dilts model, I always call it the Dilts model. Where we have our purpose, our identity, beliefs, values, competencies, behavior, and our environment. So I could ask Valerie, I could say, well, in this environment, dating and such, put it in this context, what specifically do you believe about getting to know somebody? Getting to know somebody will lead to what for you? Valerie?
A decision on whether or not I want to give this person my undivided attention.
Okay. Notice how that's a belief. If she knows somebody, it'll lead to a decision, right?
Mhm.
And the belief isn't necessarily real, but it is real for her. I could also say, okay, well, what is it that you value in making that that decision?
Well-informed decision.
Okay. So who are you when you make a well-informed decision?
I guess I'm thoughtful, not hasty.
So when you're thoughtful and you're not hasty, this is a pretty good competency that you probably have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is an example of what type of person.
A wise person.
Okay. And so when you make this thoughtful decision and this wise decision and you take your time to do this, you see yourself as a wise person?
Mm-hmm.
Notice there, everyone, how I just moved around her whole map of the world, got a little bit more specific, a little bit less, more general to go ahead and find out this identity level.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I asked an identity level question. What happens when you have this belief and you do according to this belief? And what did she give me? Stephen,
Wise.
yeah.
A wise person. Yeah.
No, not yet. She gave me two things.
What'd you give him, Valerie?
Informed decision making. Well-informed decision making.
You gave me two competencies. And so I said,
thoughtful and not hasty.
yeah. And so when I said you are thoughtful and not hasty, what kind of person does that make you? Or who are you? And so that's when you said a wise person.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I just checked it back to make sure.
Okay.
What's useful in this is that wise person is the most important. That's the greatest level of change. I could say, okay, so what happens when you're not a wise person in dating? What do you do? What do you believe? What are your actions? What environments do you see yourself in?
Mm-hmm.
And so for Valerie, I would assume, or I would probably know, or be pretty close to knowing with this, she wants to see herself as a wise person in dating.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you, if you're not wise in dating, this is probably going to be pretty bad for you.
Yeah.
So generally, all my actions towards helping her are going to be towards making her more wise in dating. And we could go and we can identify what is wise for her.
Mm-hmm.
So what specifically is wise for you, Valerie? What do you believe about it?
Paying attention and not discounting information, especially since people seem to readily offer it. Staying rooted in reality. So not getting to know somebody and thinking that they're clay, you know.
Okay.
Oh, we'll just model that. We'll just mold that part a little bit differently.
What does she
Women
give
never
me,
do
guys?
that.
Yeah. What is she giving me? In our logical levels, what are those things?
Beliefs and values, I think.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's what I say.
Valerie, what do you think?
I think they're behaviors.
Yeah.
I asked for beliefs. I think I got competencies. It could be behaviors. Behaviors and competencies, the difference is a one-time thing compared to continually being able to do something. So being able to be rooted and grounded and discern what the guy's telling you seemed to me like a competency.
So my belief, I guess if I were to try to chunk it up to a belief, I think it would sound something like, I believe that if I listen well enough, that the man will tell me things that I need to know in order to know them better, in order to get to know them, like, which is the competency of not discounting information, but the belief would be that that information is true, it's important. It would be the opposite of the NLP presumption, accept the person but change the behavior. I think it kind of flies in the face of that.
Okay.
So I mean, I'll give one practical example. I went out with somebody recently for our first date, and he straight up told me that he wasn't good with people, he wasn't good with emotions, and he had no intention of improving those things.
And he had no intention. Well,
yeah, that years ago he made that decision. So
I'm attracted. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, right. I think that in some contexts, some women would look at that as a challenge.
Right, I agree with you, Valerie.
Right? That can be like a hook. Like, well, he'll be good with me, and then I'll be special in his world because I'm the only person he's good with.
So
It
he-
wasn't attractive to me.
Yeah.
It was not attracting. But, I mean, I think for some people it could be.
Do you think that he was aware of that possible reaction, and he said that on purpose because he's looking for a woman who will mold her world around him to try to change him, and then he's in
No,
control?
I think he is looking for a woman who will accept him as he is and not strive to change him. And that's the value of sharing some of these. Hey, I know myself well enough to know these things about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Does she flinch? You know, like that would be my best guess. This person was very self-aware. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I throw a lot of these stuff out at you, the hierarchy of ideas, where we're looking at more specific general information, chunking up, chunking down, chunking sideways. I throw the meta model at you, where we're breaking down the linguistic faults and gaps, where we're uncovering the generalizations, the deletions, the distortions. And also I show the logical levels. So we have many opportunities to really understand a person, but understand them on many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if we're in this dating context, if I want to, and we could talk about getting to know somebody really well, but let's say that we maybe not want to get to know them really well, but we want to be able to enter in their model of the world and know what motivates them, know what drives them, and what moves them. What might be the most useful thing for us to do with these three tools?
Use them to get at what they see as their purpose, I think.
Yeah. The higher up on the logical levels, I'd say it's a phenomenal idea. Do you think that, and this is probably a challenge in that, how easy do you think it is to get at somebody's purpose?
Depends upon the person, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what's a question that you could ask, or some kind of information, or something you could say to get somebody's purpose?
Where are you going in life?
Barb, where are you going in life?
I have no idea. No idea.
I know all sorts of people that could put that together for you in one sentence. And I know all sorts of people that would say, at least half seriously, I have no idea. And
Yeah.
people, all in between there as well.
Yeah. Would you say that most people know their purpose or they don't?
I would say it depends upon their age. That's a very, very general statement, but I think younger people in general know a lot less about it. Maybe you haven't even thought about it.
I think they know it. I think the trick is getting them to articulate it in a language that I can then understand. That's what I think where it falls apart.
And what I wonder is if it's not that they don't know it, or maybe they haven't explored it, or what do you think, Stephen?
Well, I think first of all, there's a wide range. So if there's somebody who you're thinking knows it, Valerie, but they just don't know how to explain it. I mean, I think of people that I went to college with, and they had no idea. What do you want to do with your life? I don't know. Why are you in college? Because it was the thing I did after high school, you know? They just don't know. And they may have even thought about it a lot. And that's how they know that they don't know. And there could be I've known other people that have said, I knew I was going to be an Air Force pilot since I was 5 years old. I don't know how to explain it or to come up with some generalizations.
Okay.
I can't answer that.
Okay, but if we're trying to get somebody's purpose and we want to elicit that from them, notice how I just kind of did that with yours really quick. Your assertion that older people don't know their purpose, or younger people, sorry.
Older people do know, younger people, and that's very general. Like I said, I've known the extremes on both ends of that, but in general, the older you are, I think the more you've thought about things, and the more you probably know and can explain it well, internalize it even. The younger you are, most likely you haven't thought about it much, you don't know, and you couldn't explain even basic ideas.
Okay. So let's look at that. So you gave me a specific example of people go to college and they just don't know.
Yeah.
And you'd say that from what you kind of just said, that maybe younger people haven't thought about it as much?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think they don't think about it as much?
One, they're too busy, and two, they don't look that far ahead.
Or they're not feeling the pressure of time.
Yeah, they probably don't look that far ahead because they don't think they need to. Yeah.
What should they do?
Depends.
What do you think?
I think there can be a lot of joy and freedom in not thinking about it too much. On the other hand, there can be a lot of pain and frustration in not thinking about it too much also. I don't know what I think.
If you're advising him, what would you say? Younger guy doesn't know his purpose.
I'd ask him what his passion is.
Okay. Would you say it's important for him to find his purpose?
A passion, I didn't necessarily. Is it important to find their purpose? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Though I think I know people that would disagree with that also.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important for them to find their purpose?
So they have a direction in life.
And why is that important?
If they don't have a direction, they'll probably never accomplish much.
So what?
That may not matter to them. I know people that are happy being essentially gypsies.
Yeah, but you said it's important for them to find their purpose.
No, I said I think it.
Yeah. So it's important to find their purpose so they have a direction in life, right?
Yeah.
Or they're never going to accomplish much.
Yeah.
So what if they never accomplish much? Right?
Because it's important to me to accomplish things.
Okay.
But some people it's not.
What happens if They accomplish stuff. So, different question. What happens, what's the opposite of never accomplishing much?
Accomplishing a lot.
Okay. How do you go and accomplish a lot?
We're going to go in a big circle here.
Maybe.
You know where you're going. You know what your purpose is.
Okay. And that's sometimes good to see exactly that it maps across accordingly, because it could be different.
Mm-hmm. It could, yeah.
How's it useful also, and I'm asking Valerie and Barb on this, how's it useful also to be able to go in this direction as opposed to the other direction?
Well, it helps you to know that there's congruency.
Absolutely.
It defines an outcome. So the measurement is accomplishing a lot, so we know what we're aiming for.
Okay. Stephen, what would a person get when they accomplish a lot?
Besides a sense of accomplishment.
What is it for you?
What's that?
What is it for you? What do you think it is? Person accomplishes a lot, they get what?
The sense that they are heading towards, if not accomplishing, their purpose. Working towards purpose. Say.
Okay. Why would a person want to do that?
They feel there is something bigger in the world than them, and they want to try to get there.
Okay. What happens when a person doesn't believe that there's something bigger than them?
They become the biggest thing in the world, in their world anyway.
And then what?
I think that can lead to a lot of negative behaviors.
What specifically?
Selfishness.
And so what happens when a person's selfish?
Well, I'll just make your map easy here, and I'll say they never
I want
accomplish
you to do that. I know it goes there, but I don't want it to necessarily.
If they're selfish, they probably aren't going to accomplish as much as they could.
Okay. So now that we have all this, we have a general idea of what's important for Stephen in having a purpose in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to know now is how can we use this to get Stephen's political views? And this is a little bit abstract. How do you guys think?
I have to go to bed yet.
Who's talking?
I think that was Valerie's son.
Oh, okay.
Take a stab at it, Barbie.
So repeat the question, Sean.
If we wanted to know something about a different context in his life, and I have this one in place, political views, how could we use this information, this process, and how could we try it on to see what we can learn about him politically? Or if we don't want to go politically, how could we go about business?
So business is easier for me.
Okay.
So if and maybe this is going farther than you were intending, but if I was coaching Steve and he wanted to do, maybe he was feeling stuck in his business and he wanted to make more money, I could use this to help him re-identify his purpose, set his direction. He could see help him see what he's already accomplishing, and help him see different ways to work toward his purpose, and see the bigger picture that, if he continues down his path of accomplishing a lot, that he will be part of something bigger. Be part of something bigger.
Yeah, let's say
motivate him.
Let's say that he comes to you and he's not accomplishing a lot. What do you think the problem is?
I would think that he's not sure what his purpose is, and so therefore he has no direction.
Okay, what could be another problem?
Maybe he's trying to go in too many directions.
Could be directions, could be selfishness.
Yes. Right.
Maybe other negative behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
He could think he's the biggest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
And it's important to note here that this is basically just his map. It's not necessarily the map that we see in the world as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say he knows his purpose, he knows his direction, and for him, this means accomplishing a lot. And accomplishing a lot means working towards his purpose, which also entails being something bigger than him. He could have all of these in place and still be a failure in life. So sometimes what you'll have to do is then you'll also have to have a map of life and what he's trying to accomplish. Let's say, for example, he's in a multi-level marketing business and he wants to sell Herbalife. He's working for something bigger than him. He really believes in Herbalife. It's the way to go. He's working towards his purpose. He's accomplishing a lot. He's making a lot of social media posts, and he's soliciting a lot of his friends and telling them how great multi-level marketing is. And he's having the little creepy meetings where everybody comes together and nobody knows what the meeting's about, and they pitch you at the end. He's accomplishing a lot. He knows the direction. He knows the purpose. But for some reason, it's not working. Those creepy meetings where they give you the mentor where he is a six-figure BMW at the end of it, it's just not working, and he wonders why. And it totally aligns in his mind because all this is in place. However, there also needs to be a map of the world as well, where then also you can have new strategies, new behaviors, new competencies, new identities, new beliefs, new values for him. You can add those to him. So not only can he fill this out, but he can also have more options in the way that he goes about doing this, where it may be the case that this needs to change, and it may be the case he just needs a different strategy. Maybe it's the case that multi-level marketing just isn't the way to bring health to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That makes sense here? Valerie, you hear about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something I also want to point out, if I wanted to figure out, and so that was great doing the business kind of way, Barb, if I wanted to figure out maybe a political kind of side of things, what would be important to him about potentially a candidate might be somebody who knows their purpose.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows their direction, somebody that's accomplished a lot, somebody that's working towards purpose, and something that's bigger than them. There could be a few political candidates that I know that he didn't vote for if I have that information.
Mm-hmm.
Or potentially it could be the case where I have an understanding of people that he respects, people that he aligns with. That makes sense there?
Yeah.
Right then and there, I can know a lot about somebody really quickly. It could be the case where I have all of these things and I have them in place and I try to generalize them into a different area. Say I try to move that over into the political side, and it could be a little bit different. It could be. But more often than not, they're usually pretty closely related.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Barb, let's do one for you.
Okay.
Valerie, pick out an idea, concept, beliefs, something that we can go out and take a look at for Barb.
What do you believe about money?
Hmm.
You picked an easy one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. What do I believe about money? I really have to think about this. Trying to think how to say this. Money helps you. Money helps me to get what it is that I need.
Keep going, Valerie.
Um,
Just try to map around as much as you can.
how does money help you get what you need?
Well, it's there, so I can go purchase what it is that I need.
And how do you know that it's, how do you know what to purchase? How do you know what you need?
Well, there are things like just basics like food, utilities, gas in the car, stuff like that.
Okay. Let's go the other direction. When money helps you get what you need, what does that do for you?
Provides a sense of security.
And what does having a sense of security do for you?
I'm at ease.
Pause there. Valerie, what can we interpret from what she really believes about money there?
That money brings her security and peace of mind.
Is that what it was? It peace of mind? Did I get that one wrong?
No, sense of ease was what I said.
Sense of ease.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that true for you, Barb?
Yeah,
Okay.
that is true. Mm-hmm.
Keep going, Valerie.
What happens when money helps you get things that you don't need?
So do you mean what happens when money gets me things that I just want versus things that I need?
No, things that you don't need or want.
Guess I'm not understanding the question, because I wouldn't use money to get things that I don't want or don't need.
So you've never had the experience where having money has led you to a purchasing decision that doesn't meet your needs or your wants? Is that right?
You think it does at the time, but you get home with the purchase and you go, why did I get this?
Okay.
Is that kind of where you're going, Valerie?
Yeah, like I want to see your house if that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have something in your kitchen when you see it and
Gotcha.
you so much you can't donate it or give it away.
Now I understand what you're asking. So what happens when money gets me something that I don't want or need?
Yes.
It depends on how much I had to spend on it.
So let's say you spent $500 on it.
Then I'm kicking myself and wanting to return it if I can.
And what happens when it's non-refundable?
It's like this.
Part that you thought was so amazing at the time, and
Yeah, then it's yeah, then I'm kicking myself because I wish I would have made a better decision.
What does
It's,
a better decision mean to you?
What does a better decision mean to me?
Like, how do you know what would be a better decision?
Because it would feel right. The decision would feel right in the long run.
Okay.
And that long run could be like the next day. Doesn't have to be in 6 years.
Valerie, try to validate everything she's told you and see what happens when money is not there.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, Barb, is that money helps you get what you need, helps you purchase the things that you need, like food, utilities, and gas. Do I have that right?
Correct.
And when you're purchasing things that you need, you gain that sense of security and ease. I think that's what you told me. Isn't that so?
True.
Okay. And then when money helps you to purchase things that you don't need or want, that you are kicking yourself.
Yeah, if it's that high ticket item.
Okay. And what's happening when the money is not there?
There's a lot of stress
How do you know it's a lot of stress?
because I've been there. I don't know how to pay the bills. I don't know where the next meal is coming from. So there's a lot of unknowns in my life.
Okay, so when the money's not there, there's a strong sense of stress, and there's a lot of stress over not being able to purchase the things that you need.
Correct.
Good job with this. What's an even more important question around all of this? So we elicited stress. There's lots of stress. We also know that the money's not there. How does she know that the money's not there?
Hmm.
And that could be a good.
Answered that. I think she answered that actually already.
Barb, how do you know that money's not there?
Because it's literally not there. There's no money in my bank account, no money in my wallet.
How specifically do you know? You look in the wallet, it's not there, or when's
look in the
when
wallet, look at the bank account.
So is that $0? Is that $5?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
it was $0.
absolutely $0? And you've had that experience?
Absolutely. I've been there, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So before that, then you don't feel stressed. So if you got $5, you don't feel stressed?
Yes, I feel stressed. So that's good. Good question. So yes, I do feel stressed. So I feel stressed when I don't have enough money in my wallet or bank account in order to pay the bills. Going back to those, purchase what I need, food, utilities, gas, stuff like that.
Okay. Don't have enough to pay bills. It'd be really nice if it would scroll.
Yeah.
So, question for you there. When it's not there, this is at the point where it's $0, correct? Is that what you said?
It may not be $0 at that point. It actually could be just less than what I need.
Okay.
Like maybe I can pay some bills, but not all bills. Or I can pay the bills, but I don't have any money to go buy food.
So generally you'll have this experience where you can't pay the bills, and then you know that you need to have this stress because the money's not there?
Yes.
Okay. Stephen, how's this even more useful for us?
Well, I guess you could say that we could look at it in terms of the DILTS model, and what kinds of competencies do you need to develop, maybe, or what kind of beliefs, what kind of behaviors or competencies, even beliefs and values do you need to make more money? so that you don't have the stress.
Yeah. And what's important for us, even more so, is that we know exactly when she has the point where she knows that she doesn't have the money. And so it could be assumed that it's a $0, or it could be assumed that it's, just having that feeling. But now we know that she has a situation that happens that lets her know that she doesn't have money, and now she needs to feel stress. So it could have been before when she was living and maybe she had an away from strategy. Or maybe this is just a person that we're talking to. We don't necessarily need to project on Barb, but it could be the case where you're working with somebody and they keep doing this, where they feel motivated to start working when they have this pattern, when they don't have enough to pay bills. And so one change you might want to make is, okay, when they don't have enough to pay bills, let's figure out when that is. Is that $10? Is that $20? Or for Barb, in her process, where she has a situation where a bill happens and she doesn't have enough to pay for it. Okay, well, let's change that so we can then make it a better strategy for a person. That makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Stephen, you get me now. Barb, you pick the topic. What are we going to talk about?
Let's see. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to pick a topic?
Dating or marriage or something.
Yeah, no, Sean, it's easy. Okay, so let's go with relationships and having a relationship.
Okay.
So Sean, you've given us stories about your life and about going out on dates. Do you go out on a lot of dates?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Why do you go out on dates?
To find a nice girl.
Okay. Why do you want to find a nice girl?
It would make me happy.
Okay, happiness, huh? How do you know if it's a nice girl that would make you happy?
She's caring, supportive, beautiful. I think that would consist nice. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been out on dates that you really regretted?
Oh, yeah.
How did you know it was a mistake to go out on that date?
She wasn't a nice girl.
Okay. How did you know she was not a nice girl?
Yeah, she wasn't caring, supportive, or
Okay.
beautiful.
And can you be happy without finding a nice girl?
I can.
Okay. So then why do you go out on dates?
Yeah, I want to find a nice girl.
What else would finding a nice girl do for you?
So, yeah. Okay, that's a good way to get out of that circle. So you can be happy without a nice girl, but you still want to find a nice girl. So being happy and finding a nice girl that does something more for you, it sounds like. What does that do for you?
Finding a nice girl does something more than for me than being happy, you mean?
Being happy without a nice girl, yes.
Because I can be happy without a nice girl.
Because you cannot, is that what you said?
That was my question. I can be happy without a nice girl, so going on dates would do something more for me than being happy. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I asked you if you could be happy without finding a nice girl. You said you could. And so then I asked you why you go out on dates if you can be happy without a nice girl. You said to be happy. So it's a different kind of happiness, or it does something more for you. What is it that finding a nice girl would do for you?
Pleasure.
Okay. So happiness leads to pleasure. What's the purpose of pleasure in your life?
To feel good.
Okay. I'll give you a chance to catch up.
It's kind of challenging, and it's easy when I see it out there. But pleasure, feel good.
Okay. Is feeling good different than being happy?
Yeah.
Okay. So feeling good is better than just being happy?
No.
Just different?
Yeah.
Okay. So you like different kinds of satisfaction, pleasure, happiness, feeling good.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is getting multiple kinds of satisfaction do for you?
You mean by being happy and having pleasure in my life? What does that do for me?
Right. Being happy and getting pleasure and feeling good.
Maybe like feeling a form of euphoria. I don't really have a good word for it or a better word. But that makes me even more happy though.
Okay. Is being happy your ultimate goal?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think we can go any higher there.
Okay. Try to see it in processes. So what do I do to attain what I want? Or what do I do to make my thinking work? This plus this plus this equals this. What are those things?
I think I understand what you're saying, and I think I was partly there by asking about the different types of satisfaction. See it as a process. So you've said that being happy is your highest goal, and you've shown us that you need happiness in different areas, in multiple areas. How do you know that you're moving towards happiness in any of those different areas?
I'd say it's a kinesthetic feeling.
So can you give us an example of that? Say you've decided to ask a woman for a first date. Can you tell us how you decided to ask her out, and then how you would know if it's something that you want to keep moving towards? In other words, more dates with her?
example last night, a girl texts me and wants to meet for dinner. And I feel kinesthetic feeling about here, and it feels good. And I go along that path, go towards that. And then I meet her, and then we have the date. I have that kinesthetic feeling the whole date. And then after the date, I still have the kinesthetic feeling. And it feels good. Yeah.
Interesting. So and this is more of an aside, but so it starts with kinesthetic, which is different for me. And it just progresses, and you need to make sure that that kinesthetic feeling stays there. It doesn't change into anything else.
Yeah, because if I don't have a date for a while, it'll go away.
Well, that's not where I was going with that. Okay, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do with that.
Okay, cool. Let's look at what we learned. Sometimes I go on dates, and the intent of that is to find a nice girl. Finding a nice girl would make me happy, or more happy. I think that's a little bit more accurate. A nice girl then is caring, supportive, and beautiful to me. And then we had a little bit of an aside where also related to that is pleasure. Pleasure is to feel good. And then the happiness was the feeling. And the feeling is obtained essentially by going on a date. And what happens with that is it'll diminish over time, have to reignite the flame essentially. Okay, how's that useful for us? Valerie? Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, you're muted, Valerie. Your microphone is.
Right. It's useful because you have a sense of the pacing, right, for dating.
What
There's
else?
Inspiration on the feeling, like a timeline, right?
Yeah. So what could you elicit there?
I could elicit that any kind of like long separation of time would diminish the feeling. Like if you were to go take a month-long trip somewhere.
So remember, you're looking at the person's map of the world, and what you want to know without projecting is what happens in their experience.
So I'm looking, Sean, at dating is a very kinesthetic thing for you. I mean, it obviously is for everybody. That's an important part of it, but it seems that that's the predominant thing for you. And I'm comparing that with the words that you used. Caring, supportive are the first two. And those seem to me to be very kinesthetic kinds of attributes you're looking for. So that's all congruent, and that makes sense. So I'm trying to put this into a context, and because your question was what exactly again? How would we use this information?
Yeah, and so I'll add to yours there. And what I would say for this is we could probably go like this, say caring, supportive, and beautiful. leads over here. So this feeling going on a date, and then it diminishes over time. So let's say I have a problem. Let's say my problem is I just go on too many damn dates. I'm on a date every single night of the week, and I'm always going on a date. And I come to you and I give you this map. What do you think's going on with specifically this part?
I think it's that the time where you said it diminishes over time, so that amount of time in between dates in which that good feeling starts to diminish is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's almost like it's becoming habitual, that you need to keep going on these dates to kind of like get this, happy feeling.
I was going to go a different place with that, but
It's exactly that. And I want to get to that place too, Stephen. And before that, what I want to know is, this could be a habitual problem with somebody, and I could become like a date junkie, where ultimately what could happen in a therapeutic context is this person depends on somebody else for their happiness.
right.
Where if I'm not on a date, then I have this feeling that's totally diminished, and I need to have that person. And you could see how that could go wrong on multiple levels in a person's life.
Right.
What direction were you going, Stephen?
I'm trying to come up with a label for it, but I think it's kind of the opposite of that. In other words, the progression that you guys just described was you go on a date and it makes you feel good, and so you become addicted to that. I was going to look at it probably the opposite way, and that is that you're going out on dates because you think it will make you feel better, but it doesn't. You don't get it from this one, so then you go to the next one, and you don't get it from that one. You don't get it from that one, because you're thinking that the feeling comes from the date as opposed to the feeling comes from the person you're on the date with.
Okay.
Or in that kind of context is that going out on a lot of dates, but they're not the type of girl that you would consider to be nice. And so you just keep going, okay, it wasn't that one, go to the next one. Wasn't that one, go to the next one. And you're just not getting that feeling of happiness because you're just not going out on dates with the right person.
That's sort of a better explanation of what I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's great with all these tools that we have is we can find out all of that. And so if I tell you that this is going to diminish over time and I'm going to have to go back out another one, you say, well, how long specifically? Is it going to be an hour until you have this feeling again, or until this feeling goes away, or is it going to be 3 days? Okay, so in 3 days, you're going to need to go on a date so you can get this feeling back, or is it going to be 1 week?
Yeah. Is it 3 days with every woman? Or have you found some women that it doesn't diminish with over time?
Exactly. And so it's the case you're trying to get me into just finding one nice girl.
Right.
And then we look at a strategy and a process to get to that. Is it going to be the case where she's caring, supportive, and beautiful, and then you will still have this feeling and it'll take 1 month, 2 months to diminish? Or will it last for maybe a year or 2 years? Or will this feeling last forever if you find the ultimate caring, supportive, and beautiful woman?
Exactly.
To contrast this, actually, I don't want to contrast that.
Well, so one of the other things I was thinking with this, Sean, is like, with a client, they could be, it's kind of like what we said a little bit earlier too, is that they feel that if they go on lots of dates, they'll find a nice girl, that's what's going to make them happy. And so I really liked how Stephen really kind of went in there and asked a lot of good questions to see if it really is that your belief was that the only way you can be happy is to find a nice girl, which you said, no, you can be happy in other contexts, because a lot of people would make that association. If I'm not with somebody, I'm not happy. And so I like that Stephen, vetted that out.
I tried to ask a bunch of counter examples. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Because my thought in the beginning was, well, what's being happy, what does that do for you? And then that's what was going in my mind, but Stephen took it a different avenue, which actually worked much better.
I would say that was even a poor linguistical representation by me. If I say I find a nice girl because it makes me happy, I'm more like, what sounds more true to me now is it would make me more happy. And so sometimes you can detect those. Sometimes those will come up where like, it seems like you're already happy, or you can have happiness without this. Would it be the case that would just make you more happy, or how would it affect your happiness?
Well, I was actually trying to get you to say that, Sean, and I obviously didn't do a good job, but yeah.
So you could use sleight of mouth to get there, right?
Oh, I'm sure I could if I could think that quickly.
It's not that it makes you happy. It's that it makes you more happy. You phrase it as a question, and then,
Yeah. So what I said was, can you be happy without finding a nice girl?
Mm-hmm.
And you said yes. And then I said, so you can find happiness in other areas, and you said yes. And then I said, so what does finding a nice girl do for you? But you went back to the same place. So I probably could have, what could I have done differently at that point?
Similar to kind of what we're talking about, and I would just say to rephrase it in that way.
Okay.
Because what we're looking at is a process, and what I'm seeing in essentially everything that I've worked with NLP is processes and structures. So what I told you was finding a nice girl leads to happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically that's what I said. But then I also countered, like I told you that that's not true, because I said happiness I can also get there not having a nice girl. So that's what you found, right?
Right.
And that's a huge distinction. And so at that point, you can come back to me and you say, okay, so you had said earlier that finding a nice girl is going to lead to you being happy, right? But you also said that it's the case where you could not have a nice girl and you could also have happiness. How would that happen?
Okay.
Okay.
So what we're looking at in just about everything is a bunch of math problems. And so for me, if I would answer that, I would say, I could have a good career. I could have a lot of money coming in. I could, just be at a place where I'm really happy with my life, and that would lead to happiness for me. And then you'd say, okay, well, and in that situation, you don't have the nice girl, right? And that's okay. You're still happy there, right? I'd say, yeah. And then I would confirm again, okay, so not having a nice girl, you could still be happy. What then would happen if you added the nice girl to it? And then I would tell you, I'd just be more happy.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have a new representation. Then our representation is, okay, finding a nice girl then just leads to more happiness.
Okay.
And so then you can test it. You could say, okay, so let's say you're in this place of total happiness. You don't have the nice girl, but then you obtain the nice girl. What happens? I become more happy. Okay. What happens then if you lose the nice girl? I become less happy.
Okay.
That all makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
How are you guys doing with this topic? Asking the questions, kind of getting around with these things?
I'm loving the topic. The more we work with it, the more I realize I need to work with it more.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing more and more the value of it.
Okay.
One of the kind of underlying pieces of all of this is that you've sort of taken control of the conversation and you're taking it where you want it to go. And I did that just the other day. I've got a cranky old guy who's a friend of mine, and I was at his house and I was helping him do stuff he needed help with. And then I needed him to do something for me. And I knew it was going to piss him off because he's a cranky old guy. And so I told him what I needed, and he just started getting cranky. And I just took control of the situation and turned it around like almost instantly within a few seconds. And he was happy again.
How? From the point of asking to him being happy again?
He started saying negative things. I don't want to get sideways about this. And I said, well, then don't. And then I gave him something to be happy about. I don't remember what I said exactly.
Well, you asked the question. Could you tell us, what did you ask of him?
It was just something I needed him to do for me.
Okay.
After I had done, yeah. I need you to return the favor, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. What happened next?
He started going very negative.
Okay, and then?
And I said, basically, just don't go there. And then I pointed him towards something positive. And he completely forgot about the negative. It changed his whole attitude immediately.
You basically reframed. You used sleight of mouth.
What did I do?
In a way.
I took control. I essentially commanded him. I said, so then don't go there.
Okay.
And then I
here instead.
Yeah, exactly. I just took control of it and directed him. Yeah.
Okay. And what happens if you didn't say don't go there?
He probably would have kept going down and down negative and get himself all wound up in a negative state.
Okay. And
Which
then
I know him well enough to know that that's what he would do.
Okay. So he goes more negative.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens then in the form of your outcome?
I don't get what I want, and he's unhappy. So I'm unhappy and he's unhappy.
Yep.
And I got it to where he was happy and I was happy.
Okay.
And I recognize that if I hadn't known what I know about NLP, I would not have been able to do that.
Okay. Thanks for that example. I kind of feel like we just did a microcosm within a microcosm there, though, where you took control and then I kind of took control. the process here.
We did do that, yeah.
Yeah. But I keep noticing this, and it's just, I don't know if this is a good thing or if I'm going to become a robot, but I see all this stuff as like a process.
Mm-hmm.
And so very quickly I can interrupt somebody when they're giving me a lot of content. So maybe this guy is going super negative and he's just like bitching and moaning, and I just shut him down and say, don't go there, go towards this instead. Okay, now I have my outcome.
Yep. It was amazingly simple and fast.
Okay, yeah. That's cool.
It was cool.
And Barbara, how are you feeling about this topic specifically?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I agree with Stephen. It's the more we go over it together as a group, the more I realize I need to practice more.
Okay.
because, you know, some of it is just getting to that point of proficiency of knowing better questions to ask to get to the best outcome for the person. That's where I get myself stuck sometimes, is just that, what are the better questions to ask? So,
Okay.
and I know that just is, it's practice.
Yeah, and it becomes intuitive. It really does.
Yeah. And I do have to say, there are times when I've been in, you know, talking with somebody and I'll go, how would Sean ask this question? Or, and seriously, and then I'll be like, so there's been times I'm like, how would Valerie ask this? You know, and so I just try to model, you know, what I see you guys doing too. So.
Have you guys noticed that sometimes where I'll have really shit questions? Like the question won't make any sense, and it'll be like, you know, if I just asked that question and I didn't maybe pre-phrase it or say something before or have some kind of line of questioning before, that it would just suck.
You're not just being intentionally vague?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in that I am, but you know, the question, if you just take the question at face value, sometimes they really suck. Mm-hmm. But they can't suck if they get me the outcome that I wanted.
Right. Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just the case, and I'm talking with somebody and I'll lead them towards like a large path, and I'll say, well, and you're working and you're doing all these things, and maybe you're in a stable place in your life and you're really enjoying your life. And I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, well, what are you doing here? Or how is it that you're single, or those kind of things? And that's the question I used with Valerie. And, you know, it's a terrible question. You know, if you ask a woman, how are you single? You know, it's generally not a really good one, but if I pace it that way, and then I get all my kinds of answers that maybe I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie, how are you feeling with this topic and just kind of in general?
I feel like I have a good understanding of chunking up versus chunking down, but I'm not sure that it's as easy to place everything on the DILTS model. So purpose, identity, beliefs, and values. That one, I feel like there's a lot of value in it, and I wish I had it more at my fingertips to kind of be able to name it and say, oh, that's a competency. Oh, that's an identity. That's one weakness that I see. And then this is something that there's irony in me saying this only because my team at work struggles with this a lot. But it's to your point that you just made. I want to sound polished. Do this, even though logically I know that it works if I'm not polished, and it works if the other person even knows what I'm doing. I know that from experience and from learning and instruction, that it's okay for it to not be polished. But at this point in my life, I usually sound articulate, damn it. And I want to sound articulate. And that's really slowing me down, because when it comes to stringing the words together, I want to put some finesse or flair on it that it doesn't even really need. So I'm kind of like smacking my forehead, because I'm always intervening with my team, going, just try it out. You don't have to sound good. Like, the other person's not even going to notice that you don't sound as good as you normally do. And they are generally unwilling to sound anything less than very polished. So
can I share a quick story with you, Valerie?
Mm-hmm.
I see we're a little bit over time. When I used to teach at the Air Force Academy, I taught with, there were 2 full colonels in there, which is one step below a general, if you don't know that stuff. And, you know, most of the people there had their PhDs, and I do not have a PhD, just a master's. And so I noticed that when they actually wanted to create an open atmosphere for people to feel comfortable and give them feedback, because they realized between their rank and their education and their title, et cetera, they could be very intimidating, right? Mm-hmm. So they wanted to get past that. And so they may very well have had a fully formed thought in their head, but I remember one colonel once saying, just starting to talk, and he stopped and he said, so this is not a fully formed thought, but, and then he just said something. In other words, he presented things in an unpolished way, purposefully, to get people engaged.
Now that's mastery,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've heard of that type of thing in like a sales context as well. I read a story once about a guy who was, I think he had been a football player maybe or something, you know, but he was big and he was tall. And he knew that when he walked into somebody's office to try to sell them something, he was this big imposing figure, and it could be intimidating, especially like to females sitting down at their desk, right? So he would often do something like he would trip and stumble as he was coming through the door to make himself not look so intimidating, but just normal, like a regular human being.
I want mastery someday.
Interesting.
That adaptable, and just to go, what do I need to do? Do I need to spill my coffee on myself right now? Like, what do I,
Well, you know, I don't know, you know, detail about your situation, but, you know, maybe you could just say something like, okay, guys, so I have this thought. I'm not really sure if it's a good one or not, but I'm thinking this. Help me, you know, finish this thought, figure out if it does make sense. You know, you could present something like that.
Yeah, and we break through some of those barriers when we're talking about us working as a team, but all the people that I lead are basically project managers, and they manage their own client list. So it's getting them to use it with their clients. That's where we're really struggling.
So you can model it, and then at the end of the meeting, you can take 5 minutes and go back and say, so remember when I said this? I did that on purpose, and here's what I was trying to accomplish by doing that.
You were like the 7th person to tell me this recently. I have to start.
Is it going to be 30 times before it sinks in, or?
Ooh, burn. That's what I get for sharing my map, huh?
Just breaking down those barriers so we all feel comfortable, you know.
I keep getting that feedback that I have to start telling my team the method to my madness. I have to start explaining the why behind all of this intentionality that I am using at work. I chafe against it because I want them to just trust me and follow along and come to it themselves without being told. But apparently that's not where we are right now as a team.